Hey guys, Windshear here. I want to see if I can muddy the waters a little more about all this attachment controversy going on. And I got this chart off of Shutysbang's YouTube channel, and this video isn't meant to contradict anything he's saying. This is just my interpretation of what I'm seeing. First, when I saw this chart, I was kind of excited about it. I'm like, finally, everything I need right here on one page. But prior to this chart, I was referencing Simthick.com, and I'm not really happy with their revised website in terms of the attachment data. It's kind of obscure. But right off the bat with this chart, I'm seeing just a few discrepancies. I'm not going to say everything's wrong in this chart, but I want to caution you about charts like this because without knowing who the publisher is, or really who made stuff like this, and I'm getting a little chatter about this chart too. I've seen it posted some other places. Uh, I don't think all the data on this chart's accurate, and I'll give you an example why here. Well, just right off the bat, for example, look at the M27. Obviously, you got your weapons on the left-hand column and the attachments on the top. Look at the M27 IAR in the support class. Um, Look under the heavy barrel attachment, and for some reason we have data for an M27 with the heavy barrel. I don't know about you guys, but I've got almost 3,000 kills with that gun. There is no heavy barrel attachment for that gun. So right off the bat, I'm starting to question the validity of this data. Uh, Maybe it's just a typo, but then when I see some data over here and just overall trying to interpret what this chart's showing you, you'll see, again, why I'm starting to question this. For example, look at the engineer class and the SCAR, for example. The SCAR H engineer class. Let's just compare the foregrip with horizontal recoil. Okay, we got a 50% number in the green. Now, green obviously means that's good, and all of us can agree, I think, in the community, and I know this weapon well. Amongst all our engineer class weapons, the SCAR has the most significant side-to-side recoil in the game. So I'm going to discern from this chart with the 50% there that basically the lower the number is, the greater the benefit of the attachment gives you in the weapon. So you got to do a little math here, but 50% would mean that there is a 50% reduction in your horizontal recoil. Okay? Now, looking at the bipod, I think we can all also agree the bipod attachment will give you even a more benefit, is the most beneficial attachment you can put on your weapon, correct? So under the horizontal recoil, we have a 25% number. So again, with my theory of a lower number being better in terms of the green column, 25% would mean that there's a 75% reduction in a horizontal recoil when you put the bipod on. And that would make sense because a bipod would give you more reduction in your horizontal recoil over a grip, correct? Okay, so this is kind of starting to make sense to me, but then when I look up at the assault class category, everything's turned upside down here in this data, and I'll show you why. The G3, for example, and the F2000, okay, let's compare those two guns. We have an 80% under the F2000 in terms of the horizontal recoil, and we have a 50% reduction in the G3. So I'm like, wait a minute here. Everybody in this game knows that G3A3 has the lowest horizontal recoil of any assault class weapon, and the F2000 has the highest horizontal recoil of any weapon in the game. So you're saying in this chart that 80%, that means there's only a 20% reduction in horizontal recoil in the F2000 and a 50% reduction on the G3? I'm finding that hard to believe. Again, and it goes too with the AEK 971, another weapon with a high side-to-side recoil. You're saying there's only a 20% reduction in the horizontal recoil of that weapon? So, and look at all the other assault class weapons. Everything else pretty much has more significant reduction because all the numbers are lower than the AEK or the F2000. So it's basically saying in this column that every other weapon, for example, the AK-74M has a 33% reduction in horizontal recoil, whereas you only have a 20% reduction in the AEK-971. So, that data right there kind of makes me wonder, where are they coming up with these numbers and stuff? And, again, I think it's just another person's interpretation. But I'm saying all this data is wrong because it does make sense in some respects when you compare, for example, the heavy barrel attachment I'm sorry, if you compare the suppressor attachment versus the flash suppressor attachment, you see basically, for example, again, let's just go back to the SCAR and the engineer class. You get it says there's a 90% there, so that means you get a 10% reduction in vertical recoil. That makes sense. Now, if you compare that to the flash suppressor, for example, you actually get a greater benefit in vertical recoil with the flash suppressor because it has 72.5 right there. So, there's a greater benefit in terms of reducing your vertical recoil with the flash suppressor on the SCAR as opposed to a suppressor. But the suppressor, for example, gives you a little 25% bonus with your aiming down sight spread, whereas the flash suppressor does not. Now, of course, there's red columns here on the suppressor in terms of hip fire. With the SCAR, with the hip min spread, you're going to increase your spread by 40% with a suppressor attached, and you're going to increase your drop off by 58%. So in other words, let's say your gun's doing 30 damage at 100 feet. Now it's going to do 30 damage at 58 feet. Again, this is kind of my interpretation how I read these charts, but again, I question some of those data in terms of, particularly in the assault class, because that 80% just doesn't make any sense on the F2000. That number should be 50% if you ask me. On the G3, it should be 80% because, again, there's not much recoil on the G3, not much reason to put a grip on the G3, but according to this chart, there is. So again, I'll let you guys look over this chart. That's my interpretation of it. You can replay this tape and see. Again, that's my theory on it. I may be wrong, but just caution you on these charts. I still think simthick.com is a better website, but still it doesn't really give you that much accurate information on the attachments. But you can see for yourself on that website, and that's pronounced, I believe it's pronounced simthick.com, if I'm saying that correctly. But you can look on that chart and see the damage on the gun. You can see the amount of horizontal recoil and vertical recoil, and I believe all that data is pretty accurate that they have there. Again, I just don't like the way they presented the attachment information. But maybe you guys can leave some comments for me and let me know what you're thinking in terms of if you found better websites with better data out there, and I can get that posted up if you got that information. But like the video, subscribe, it helped you out, and like I say, just watch my videos again about the best loadouts without grip, and I kind of give you rationale. I actually give you hard data you can look at visually. I compare the recoil patterns side to side. But that's all I got. This is Winshear again. Thanks for watching. I'll have more to come.